So you want a big, luxurious three-row SUV with a V8 engine. What are your options? Well, there's the Land Rover Range Rover, the BMW X7, the Cadillac Escalade, and this, the Mercedes-Benz GLS 580. So is this the best V8 powered luxury three-row SUV out there? Let's go for a drive and find out. If you're lamenting the demise of the V8 engine, then hopefully you'll consider buying this GLS 580 to show a company like Mercedes-Benz that V8s still have their place in today's market. So under the hood of this GLS is the 4-liter bi-turbo V8, and it produces 510 horsepower and 538 pound-feet of torque. Of course, this is a big and heavy SUV, but even so, acceleration from a stop to 100 kilometers an hour takes just under 5 seconds, according to Mercedes-Benz. This engine also has a 48-volt mild hybrid system, which means that it is responsive, and it also, of course, helps a little bit with the fuel economy. Peak torque is down low in the RPMs, and that means that in everyday driving, the RPM needle never needs to go past 2000. At times, it almost feels like a lazy American V8 engine. Of course, though, whenever you put your foot down, the 9-speed automatic transmission downshifts accordingly, and away you go. This GLS 580 does have a few different drive modes to choose from. There's individual, comfort, sport, and off-road. Sport mode does sharpen things up a bit, but if you decide to take over shifting with the paddle shifters that are on the steering wheel, there is some delay from the time that you pull it to the time the transmission actually downshifts. It's not a big delay, but it is something that is noticeable. As for fuel economy, well, like I said a little bit earlier, this big SUV does have a mild hybrid system, but it's not the type that allows you to drive just on electricity for brief periods. This more so helps with engine response and a smoother auto start-stop. But I will say this, if you do plan on getting this GLS 580, it actually returns some pretty decent fuel economy. On highways, that is. It's rated for 12.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which, come on, let's face it, that's not too bad for such a big and powerful V8 SUV. In a city, however, it is pretty bad, 16.6 liters per 100 kilometers. But because I have been driving mostly on highways this past week, I've been averaging about 13.2 liters per 100 kilometers. Unfortunately, this GLS 580 does not have an eco mode, which would allow the engine to shut off for very brief periods whenever you take your foot off the throttle pedal. But at least in a normal comfort mode, the auto start stop is very smooth and it does engage momentarily before you arrive at a complete stop. But if you do still find it intrusive, then there is a button next to the engine start stop to shut off the auto start stop system. Though it doesn't say AMG on the back, the GLS 580 can take corners at a pretty brisk pace. The standard aromatic suspension not only provides a smooth ride, but it also settles the body quickly after a road undulation. The massive tires provide plenty of grip, or at least they would in the summer. This demo vehicle still had summer tires fitted to it, but the weather during the week in which I drove the GLS 580 was cold. Below 7 degrees Celsius, these type of tires get hard and lose performance. But even so, when the temperatures increased in the afternoons, the SUV drove smoothly through corners. Again, it didn't feel as enjoyable as the AMG version, but this big luxury SUV showed some athleticism. The The Mercedes GLS 580 comes with standard aromatic suspension and adaptive dampers. I recently took 3 of my coworkers on a little trip, and all of them could not stop talking about how smooth the ride is in this GLS 580. You can still feel the manhole covers and potholes as you drive over them, but it doesn't feel like as though you're crashing through them. The edges are rounded off, and whenever you drive over a road undulation, the air suspension and adaptive dampers immediately settle the body. This GLS is also a quiet place to be in, at least depending on the type of tires that it has. So this particular demo vehicle still has summer tires, even at the beginning of December in Vancouver, which temperatures are getting very cold now. But I have noticed that on more porous roads, these tires do make a bit more noise than on freshly paved asphalt. But otherwise, there's absolutely no wind noise, and unfortunately, you don't really hear that much engine noise, because this V8 does sound good, but it doesn't sound as loud as an AMG GLS 63. And as I mentioned earlier in the performance section of this review, the auto start stop system is really smooth, and you hardly feel any vibrations from this V8 engine. As you would expect, the interior of the Mercedes GLS is very spacious, particularly up here in the front seats. I have plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom. You also get a very commanding driving position. You can easily see over small sedans and small crossover SUVs. The only thing that has me worried just a teeny tiny bit in the case of an accident is the engine start-stop button protruding from the dashboard. My knee isn't touching it, but it is perilously close to it. So I can't stop thinking about the fact that if I were in an accident, I would slide forward and bang my knee up against it. But otherwise, very spacious up here in the front. The design of the interior is a little bit more old school because the GLS has not been given the same update as newer Mercedes-Benz vehicles have received, such as the new C-Class or the new CLE class. So that means it does not have a large tablet on the center dashboard. Instead, you get the traditional dual screen layout with the older MBUX infotainment system, which I think works just fine. And you get 4 air vents right underneath it, along with physical toggle switches just underneath them. And I find these so much nicer than having to take my focus away from driving and touch a touch screen to change the air temperature, for example. So I'm very glad that this GLS, for the time being at least, does not have the new tablet style touchscreen. You also get the old school touchpad that's on the center console. I find it works just fine, but you do have capacitive touch controls for the steering wheel. I'm not a fan of these. I much prefer the previous iteration of Mercedes-Benz steering wheels with those BlackBerry style touchpads on either side and toggle switches and physical buttons for all the other controls. These I find a bit too finicky. And that's about it for the front seats of the Mercedes-Benz GLS. Now let's go check out the back seats. In the second row, there is a lot of space for tall individuals. I'm 6'4" and I fit comfortably behind my tall 6'4" driving position. As you can see, plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom. In the second row, you can get bench seats like how this one is with 3-person seating, or you can get captain's chairs for just 2 people to sit. These seats are power operated and they're split 60-40, so these 2 seats can move forwards and backwards, and of course they can also recline. If you pull down the center backrest, you will find a small compartment, a wireless phone charging pad, and a tablet. Now this tablet does not let you check your emails or watch TV or anything like that, but it does control certain aspects of the car. Like for example, you can change the ambient lighting system, you can change the radio station, and you can also control the different massaging programs for these outermost seats. Yes, these back second row seats are massaging, in addition to heating and ventilating. So, pretty nice little nifty feature, and it goes right in here. And that's about it for the second row. Now let's see if I can squeeze into the third row. As I mentioned earlier, these second row seats are power operated, and there's a little button up here that allows you to get the seat to move forward for you. However, as you can see, it does take a little while for it to slide forwards. So if it's raining outside, you're going to be getting wet a little bit. And once you're in, there's another button down here. However, this one you have to now hold, because if you let go, the seat just stops. And also, once the seat does come back, it doesn't come back to its previous position. So previously it was all the way back and leaned all the way back. But as you can see, now it's a little bit more forward and the lean angle is a bit more upright. So in this position, I do have an okay amount of leg space. But these two seats are all the way back, and between the cushion and the back of them, there's only this much leg space. So these third row seats are definitely not made for adults. However, they are heated, so that's nice, but definitely not big enough for adults. Behind all rows of seats, the Mercedes-Benz GLS 580 has 355 liters of cargo space. With the third row folded, it provides 1,210 liters of cargo space, and with the second and third rows folded, it has a maximum cargo capacity of 2,400 liters. The third and second rows can be folded and raised electronically, and there's a button in the trunk for lowering the back of the GLS for easier loading or unloading. As you would expect, the Mercedes-Benz GLS 580 is not a cheap luxury three-row SUV. It starts at over $140,000 Canadian, with this particular demo vehicle having about $20,000 in options for an as-tested price of $160,635 Canadian. Some of these options included leather upholstery, which, to be honest, doesn't feel that great to the touch. It's very coarse. There's also heated, ventilated, and massaging front and second row seats, heated third row seats, heated armrest and center console, heated and cooled front cup holders, panoramic sunroof, a head-up display, an available 5-zone climate control system, Burmeister surround sound system, wireless phone charging pads in the front and back, and soft closed doors, to name just a few of the convenience features in this luxury SUV. The GLS 580 received a small update to the exterior, with the most noticeable change is the new grille, which looks, well, like a grille. The taillights have also been tweaked a bit, but otherwise it remains the same large SUV that it has been since the introduction of this current generation back in 2019. In the end, the Mercedes-Benz GLS 580 may not be the best value for your money because you can get almost all of the same features in the less expensive GLS 450. But having a powerful V8 in your life is so much more exciting. For its size, the GLS 580 retains a level of athleticism that can only be matched by the BMW X7. However, this GLS also balances comfort into the equation very, very well. If you'd like to know more about this Mercedes-Benz GLS, I have a more detailed written review of it over on my website. You can find that link in the video description or click on the pop-up banner in the top right corner. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video and see you in the next one.